I'm Dr. Camila Reyes. 2 weeks ago, I held an ultrasound probe to a woman's belly. We realized she was carrying the child my husband swore he never wanted. She said the father was a military man. In the middle of a divorce, she didn't know his wife was the one holding the gel and printing the image of the baby that wasn't mine. She didn't know that wife was me. And my husband. He still doesn't know what I did after that scan. So tell me, where are you listening from? What time is it where you are? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. Because maybe someone out there has lived this too. The room smelled like antiseptic and tired coffee. We were behind schedule. My eyes stung, my stomach had knots. When the nurse slid the file across my desk, I almost didn't look. Another walk-in, no insurance, young. Then I saw the name. Emily Hastings. Address Fort Lowell Military Housing. Sector South. Mark's Post. I told myself it was coincidence. There are lots of Hastings. Lots of Emilys. But when she walked in, my throat locked. She was young. Soft voice? A little shaky. First pregnancy? I asked. She nodded. He said I should get checked. She looked away. He's a soldier. Said he's leaving soon. Going through stuff. I froze. The ultrasound screen lit up. A small flicker. Heartbeat strong. 9 weeks. I kept my hands steady. Kept my face blank. But inside, everything cracked. Do you remember when you conceived? I asked gently. She thought, maybe 10 weeks ago. Right before he drove south. He said it'd be a while. My fingers gripped the pen. Mark was already deployed that week. I packed his bag, drove him to the post. She was lying. Or someone was. That night, I sat in the dark, chart in one hand, wine untouched in the other. If he wasn't the father, then why lie? And if he was? What did that make me? So I ordered the test. And waited. You think betrayal is loud. But sometimes, it's just a quiet heartbeat on a screen you can't unsee. The house was cold when I got home that morning. The lights were off. Mark was asleep. Still in his uniform, boots kicked halfway under the bed. I didn't wake him. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter. The sound felt too loud, like it didn't belong in this house anymore. Maybe I didn't either. The air smelled like leftover takeout. Soy sauce, maybe. Something oily clinging to the walls. The trash hadn't been taken out. The sink was full. Our wedding photo sat on the shelf by the fridge. A thin layer of dust blurred our smiles. I used to think love faded slowly, that it unraveled thread by thread, quiet and kind. But no, sometimes it snaps, like a tendon, loud, sudden. Pain you don't expect until you try to walk again. I sat at the kitchen table without turning on the light. My hands trembled, but not from fear, just exhaustion. And the weight of knowing something I couldn't unknow. We met during a military rotation. He was leading an emergency drill for med students. I was still awkward in scrubs, sweating through my notes, terrified of IV lines and army rules. Mark was calm, direct, not charming, not smooth, but solid. He handed me gauze during a simulation. I dropped it. He didn't laugh. He just picked it up and said, "You'll be fine. You're steady under pressure." It was the first kind thing any man in uniform had ever said to me. I didn't fall in love with him. I just stopped bracing for disappointment. I stood now in the same kitchen where he once made coffee at 5 a.m. before I'd run off to the hospital. That man would warm my gloves in his pocket so my hands didn't freeze during winter call. That man would leave sticky notes on the mirror. "You've got this. Proud of you." Now he left receipts from gas stations 3 hours north. Now he said less and disappeared more. I got up, opened the drawer by the door. Mail, coupons, old voter guides, and a small envelope, no stamp, handwritten, my name on the corner, but not in Mark's handwriting. I turned it over, nothing on the back. Not yet ready to open it. But something inside me already had. I didn't open the envelope that morning. Just placed it in the drawer, under the flashlight and the spare keys, where things go when you don't know what to do with them. I took a shower. Water too hot. Steam filled the room until the mirror blurred. For a moment I pretended this was still a normal day. that I had a husband who told the truth, that I was just tired from night shift, not from pretending everything still made sense. My scrubs smelled like disinfectant, the collar still damp from sweat and worry. I changed anyway, slid into jeans, pulled my hair back too tight. There was something sharp about silence today, the kind that wraps around your ribs and squeezes. I walked past the hallway mirror, but didn't look. In the kitchen, the calendar still showed last month. April, circled days from when Mark was supposedly gone. I brewed coffee. The machine sputtered. Mark's favorite mug was missing. The one from his academy graduation. I checked the dishwasher, nothing. Opened the trash. There it was, cracked like it had fallen. Or been thrown. I didn't remember dropping it. I left early. Clinic started at noon, but I needed space more than I needed rest. The nurses smiled the way people smile when they know something's off, but don't ask. I checked the security log on my hospital account. Then I opened our home camera app. Just curious. Just routine. Mark told me he got home at 10 the night before, said he was delayed at the checkpoint. But the camera said he walked through the door at 8:42. 2 hours he never mentioned. My pulse ticked faster. I zoomed in. He had something in his hand. A bag. Small. White. I paused the video. Didn't recognize the logo. But the way he looked. Shoulders tense. Eyes darting toward the hallway. He wasn't calm. He looked like someone hiding something. That night, while Mark was in the shower, I opened the bathroom cabinet. My side looked the same. Toothpaste. Tampons. One bottle of melatonin, half empty. But his shelf had a new bottle. No label I'd seen before. Just daily multivitamin for women. 1/3 gone. I put it back, closed the cabinet, didn't say a word, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The apartment felt smaller each time I came home. Mark had been there. I could tell. The couch cushions were dented differently. The blinds drawn, but not how I usually close them. Something had shifted. Not just in him. In everything. There was a smell. Not quite cologne, not quite detergent. Something sweet and faint like body mist from a teenager's locker. I stood in the hallway, watching the shadows stretch across the floor. This was still my home. Wasn't it? I walked into the bedroom. Mark's side of the dresser was open. He rarely left it that way. His top drawer used to hold cufflinks, old challenge coins, notes I'd left him during rotations. Now just socks. Rolled tight, like he was packing, or preparing. I reached for the file box under the bed, where we kept everything. Insurance forms, his military records, appointment slips I'd scheduled for him back when I still handled it all. But the folder labeled, medical deployment, wasn't there. I flipped through again. Finance, housing, letters from Veterans Affairs, no medical folder. I knew I didn't move it, and he never cared enough to organize anything on his own. Unless he had something to hide. I opened the last envelope in the box, our old joint application for military family housing. My name scratched in, his clean. His handwriting looked colder now, sharper. I put the papers back, slid the box in slowly, my pulse tapping just beneath my collarbone. I walked into the kitchen for water. Didn't drink it. The envelope was still in the drawer. I held it again. Still sealed. Edges slightly worn, like someone had gripped it too hard, then changed their mind. Outside, Mark laughed. His voice carried through the balcony door. Not a real laugh, a performative one. He was on the phone. Said something about flights. Then, no, she doesn't know. He paused. Didn't realize I was just 10 feet away. I stood frozen, letter in one hand, a copy of his missing medical index in the other. He was out there in the sun, smiling like a man with nothing to lose. I was inside, surrounded by everything he'd already taken. I opened the envelope after Mark left for work. The house still held his scent. Fabric softener. Old leather. Gilt. I sat at the dining table and peeled the flap slowly, like whatever was inside could bite. No return address, no note. Just a folded page. A single sheet, a laser-printed, military formatting. At first, it looked like a deployment schedule. Mark's name, unit code, checkpoints, dates, locations. Then I saw the markings. 3 circles in red pen, March 14, April 3, May 7, each one lined up with nights he told me he was out on assignment. But according to this schedule, he wasn't even on active rotation. March 14, he was listed as on leave. April 3, marked as administrative day, no field duty. May 7, no entry at all. Nothing. The paper shook in my hands. It wasn't the dates, it was the precision. Someone knew exactly what I didn't. Someone wanted me to see it. I flipped the page. Blank. No signature, no initials. Just silence pressed into paper. I logged into my old hospital system. I still had partial access from my externship at the base clinic. It was risky, but not illegal. I searched for her. Emily Hastings. Found her file. Created 2 weeks ago. Just before she walked into my clinic. But here's what stopped me cold. She had already visited the military outpatient center 4 days earlier. Different complaint. Pelvic pain, no known trauma, no mention of pregnancy, no record of referral, no OB consult, no physician signature, just intake notes, vitals, a short comment, follow up a civilian. Why lie? Why tell me she just found out? Unless this was staged. Unless she was told what to say. Unless someone wanted me to hear it from her. And not from him. I stared at the screen until the lines blurred. My husband was either cheating or orchestrating something worse. I closed the laptop. My palms were damp. My throat tight. Who sent the file? And what did they want me to do with it? I opened Mark's laptop while the laundry ran and the shower steamed behind a locked door. His password hadn't changed. Still our anniversary. June 10. Funny how men keep the symbols long after they've thrown away the meaning. The desktop was nearly empty. No folders, no notes. Too clean. But in the downloads folder, a file, JPEG, titled Receipt 204. I clicked. It wasn't a receipt. It was an ultrasound. But not mine. Not from our clinic. Different contrast. Different machine interface. The date stamp. Last Thursday, 6:41 p.m. I stared at it, not the image. But the fact he'd saved it. Why call it receipt? Why hide it behind a name meant to blend in? Unless he didn't want to be caught. Unless he already knew what he was doing. My hands moved on their own. I printed it. Watched the photo spit out like a quiet confession. Then I checked my messages. Mark had told me he was held at the checkpoint that day. Didn't text from 3 p.m. to nearly midnight. Said his radio was down. Said they were short on coverage. Said a lot of things. I scrolled to that Thursday, 8:23 p.m. He texted, long day, be home late, love you. At 6:41, he was holding someone else's future on a grainy screen and calling it a receipt. I walked to the kitchen, opened the drawer where we kept tape and thumbtacks and old batteries. Pulled out a pushpin. The wedding photo was still on the fridge. Us in white. Desert sunlight, dust on his boots, lipstick smudged on my tooth. I tacked the ultrasound right next to it. Didn't align the corners. Didn't care, let them both exist. His past I and what he tried to pretend wasn't his present. I didn't cry. Didn't speak. Just stood there, in the middle of our rented kitchen, listening to the printer cool down behind me. 8 years of marriage, and I had to find the truth, like a stranger digging through someone else's trash. I wasn't even sure what hurt more. That he cheated. Or that he thought I wouldn't notice. I cleared the table, pushed aside the vase of dried flowers, the eye and the unopened mail. Laid down the printed schedules, the ultrasound, the camera logs, 3 pens, 1 yellow legal pad. It was how I studied complex cases in med school. Align up the symptoms, map the sequence, find the rupture point. Now, the patient was my marriage, and I was both doctor and next of kin. I drew a straight timeline across the page. Labeled each week for the past 3 months, March 14, April 3, May 7, circled them in red just like the anonymous printout. Then I added the text logs, check-in calls, gaps in communication, asterisks where he told me he was working late. I taped the ultrasound in the margin. Next to it, the camera log from our front door, 8:42 p.m. Mark entering with the mystery bag. I leaned back in the chair, fingertip tapping the table. It didn't add up. Emily said he left just after their night together, that he told her he was being reassigned. But that same weekend, he was home. Quiet. Did laundry. Made chili. Even watched a movie with me, half asleep on the couch. I remember, because he held my feet under the blanket, like he used to, before distance became a habit. So either Emily was lying, or she'd been told to say what she said. And that was worse. Because it meant this wasn't an affair. It was a play. A script. Rehearsed lines, meant for me to hear and break. I flipped through my old journal. It had been buried in a drawer under scarves and gloves. I hadn't opened it in months. I stopped on an entry from last December. There, scribbled in the margin. In Mark's handwriting. A note I didn't remember reading before. If anything ever happens, check the red folder. Don't trust anyone. Even me. I blinked. My chest tightened. The red folder. That was from years ago, when he had a minor concussion on deployment. I used it to track his recovery. Blood pressure, scans, notes. I hadn't seen it since. I stood. Went to the hallway closet. Pulled down the bin with our old records and first aid kits. No red folder. Only the memory of him warning me. Long before I knew he could be dangerous. What was he trying to say back then? And why did it feel like I was already too late? I waited until dinner. Didn't slam plates. Didn't cross my arms. Didn't accuse, just waited. Mark walked in at 60-12, no bag, no smile. He kissed my cheek like habit, not affection. He didn't notice the timeline was gone from the table. Didn't ask why I wasn't wearing my ring. We ate leftover stir-fry in silence. Fork scraping ceramic, the kind of quiet that buzzes louder than shouting ever could. I let him finish half his beer before I asked, "What were you doing March 14th? He didn't look up. Chewed slow. Swallowed like it hurt. "Working," he said. "Night shift." "Why?" "Just wondering." I sipped my water. Held his eyes. "Funny, your unit log says you were on leave, not just off duty." "Leave." His hand froze on the fork. Only for a second. Then he kept eating. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. But his throat pulsed just once beneath his collar. "Logs get mixed up sometimes," he said. "Takes a while to update." He was lying. But not clumsily. This was rehearsed. Polished. I set my glass down, slow, deliberate. "Do you want to lie better? Or do you want to stop lying?" He exhaled through his nose. Like I was being dramatic. Like the facts were just a phase I'd get over. "You've been stressed lately?" he said. "You always spiral when you don't sleep." There it was. The shift. The reframe. The subtle gaslight wrapped in concern. I almost laughed. Almost let him win out of muscle memory. But I didn't. I stood, picked up our dishes. Dropped his fork a little too hard in the sink. He didn't follow me. Didn't say sorry. Didn't ask what I meant. Just opened his phone, scrolled. Thumb idle. Eyes nowhere near me. I remembered the first time he made me feel small. It was over something stupid. I'd lost his dry cleaning ticket. He made me believe I'd done it on purpose. That I didn't respect his time. I cried for 2 hours. Then apologized. He didn't. I thought it was just stress back then. Now I knew better. That night, I folded the documents. Slipped them into a leather bag we hadn't used since our trip to Flagstaff. Laid the bag flat at the back of my closet, just in case. Not hidden. Not packed. But ready. Because quiet revenge starts with preparation. And I was just getting started. The next morning, Mark left before sunrise. Didn't wake me. Didn't leave a note. The front door clicked shut at 5:17 a.m. I stayed in bed, eyes open, watching the ceiling collect shadows. When I finally stood, the house felt hollow. Lived in but unloved. I brewed coffee. Didn't drink it. Walked past the fridge where the ultrasound still hung, right beside our wedding photo. Neither of us had touched it. That silence was louder than anything he could have said. I sat at the kitchen table, flipping through his old notebooks. He used to jot things down, like he'd forget them otherwise. Supply lists, cross, border patrol changes, coordinates I couldn't read. Mostly logistics. Rarely personal. But I kept looking. Near the back of one spiral-bound pad, I found a receipt tucked between pages, not digital, handwritten. Gas station off I-10, 2 bottled waters, 1 pack of gum, and prenatal vitamins. Paid in cash, no date. But the handwriting, that was his. I held the slip between 2 fingers, like it might burn. The deception wasn't sloppy. It was calculated, designed to seem invisible, unless you already knew where to look. I did now. I pulled out the red folder. Still empty. Still no sign of whatever warning Mark had once written about. Unless the warning was already in motion. I called an old friend from the military clinic, someone I trusted. Off record, I said. Can you check if anyone filed a paternity-related test for an Emily Hastings through the base system? She hesitated. You okay? No, I said. But I'm not broken either. She promised to get back to me. Said it might take a day. I thanked her, then sat in the middle of the living room with the file box open, papers spread out like puzzle pieces I no longer wanted to solve. But I had to, because something deeper was unraveling. Not just an affair, something orchestrated, layered. And if Mark had planned this so carefully, so far ahead, then maybe it wasn't about love, or even lust. Maybe it was about removal of me from our life, from his name, from whatever legacy he was trying to rewrite without me in it. I looked at the wall where our calendar still hung. He'd circled Memorial Day weekend. No note, no plans. Just a red circle. I didn't know why, but I knew one thing: I'd be ready. That night I couldn't sleep. The air felt heavier, like the walls were listening, like the silence had teeth. I sat in the hallway, back against the linen closet, watching the door to our bedroom. Closed. Dark. Mark was in there, breathing steady, dreaming of whatever future he hadn't invited me into. I opened my notebook again. This time, I wrote questions. Not facts, not evidence. Just the things I didn't want to admit I needed answers to. Why prenatal vitamins in his drawer? Why gas stations hours away? Why hide ultrasound photos under fake file names? Why Emily? Why now? Why me? At 2:13 a.m. I heard the floor creak. Mark stepped into the hall without noticing me. He looked tired. Not guilty. Just somewhere else. He walked past me. Didn't speak. Just went to the kitchen, opened the fridge, drank milk straight from the bottle. That used to annoy me. Now it just made him look small. When he turned back, he saw me. Just sitting there. Cross-legged, silent. We locked eyes for maybe 3 seconds. He didn't ask what I was doing. Didn't ask why I was awake. Didn't ask anything. He just said, "You should get some rest." Then walked away. I stayed there long after he closed the door. Because that was it, wasn't it? Not the lie. Not even the betrayal. It was the erasure. I wasn't worth confronting. Not worth deceiving with effort. I was just being phased out, quietly. Systematically. I walked back to the kitchen, opened the drawer, took out the red folder, still empty, but I filled it this time. Timeline printouts, gas station receipts, Emily's intake file, the ultrasound from his drive. Everything I had fit in 1/2-inch folder. Then I added one more thing. A sticky note. Yellow. Familiar handwriting. My own. I wrote, "I see everything now. And I won't be erased." I slid the folder under the bed. Next to the leather bag. Next to the gloves I'd packed for Flagstaff before everything cracked. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. But I was done pretending I didn't see the smoke just because the fire was still hiding. This time, I'd be the one writing the ending. The call came at 9:47 a.m. Block number. I almost didn't answer. Camila. A woman's voice, low, clipped, familiar. "Yeah, who is this?" "It's Tasha. From Fort Lowell Clinic. You asked about Emily Hastings." I stood up from the couch, heartbeat already picking up. Tasha didn't waste time. She's not in the base system anymore. They wiped it. Not deactivated. Wiped. My hand tightened around the phone. Why? I don't know. But listen. I checked around. Someone rerouted her test. What test? Paternity. She submitted a non-invasive prenatal DNA swab through a private clinic off base. But the payment name, it wasn't hers. I felt my stomach drop. Then whose? Tasha hesitated. Mark Reyes. I froze. Mark Hastings, my husband Hastings. But Reyes, my name, he used my name. My voice came out flat. He's never taken my last name. Ever? I know, Tasha said. That's why I'm calling. Because this isn't just infidelity. It's staged. Covered. They used a P.O. box registered in both initials, C.R. Sound familiar? Yes. Mark had set it up 5 years ago for security mail while deployed. Said it was for forwarding VA notices. I never thought twice. Tasha lowered her voice. I can't help more than this. You didn't get this from me. And then she hung up. I stood in the living room, with the phone still pressed to my ear, like maybe she'd come back and tell me I heard wrong. But she didn't. And I hadn't. Mark had used my name to authorize a test for a child he claimed wasn't his with a woman he swore he didn't know before last month. I walked to the entry table, opened the drawer. There it was, the USPS slip I hadn't noticed until now. Wedged between coupons and expired dog food ads, P.O. Box pickup notice, sender de-confirm solutions. To CR, I stared at it, finger tracing the printed barcode. He hadn't just lied, he'd fabricated a version of us to validate someone else's child. I opened the front door without knowing why. Just needed air. Needed space. And that's when I heard it. The low chop of helicopter blades. Getting closer, steady, rattling the windows slightly. Military, grade. Not life flight, not news. It passed overhead, shadow flickering across our yard, then disappeared into desert sky. I watched it go until the sound faded into nothing, then looked down at the paper still in my hand. CR, he was rewriting us. And I wasn't supposed to notice. But I had. And now, he couldn't undo that. That night, I waited for him. No confrontation, no traps, just stillness. Mark walked in later than usual, shoulders tight. Eyes darted once to the kitchen counter, where the USPS slip now sat. Not hidden. He didn't ask. Didn't touch it. Just opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and leaned against the counter like it was any other night. I turned off the TV. Faced him fully. Calm. Prepared. Did you get the results back? My voice was low, even. He looked at me, blank, measured. What results? I nodded slowly. Set my glass down. You used my name, Mark Reyes, to order a test for a baby you claim you didn't help create. A flicker. Just for a moment. His eyes dropped to the floor, then back to mine. You went through my mail. You made me part of your lie. I stepped closer. He's not yours, is he? He didn't respond. Didn't need to. That kind of silence, it only comes from people who've practiced it. I held up the envelope, the slip, the barcode. I know about the P.O. box. About the initials, the clinic. Tasha called. His jaw tightened. But he didn't deny it. What is this, Mark? A setup? Insurance? Are you trying to make me the legal mother? What are you planning? That's when he finally spoke. You're spiraling. 2 words. Clinical. Designed to shut me down. Make me question myself. But they didn't land. Not this time. I exhaled slowly. Didn't blink. I've been spiraling since Emily walked into my exam room. But now I'm climbing. His brow furrowed. What? I'm building something. A record. A file. A trail you can't erase. He laughed, low. Mocking. Like I was just being dramatic again. You think there's a conspiracy? He tilted his head. I made a mistake. That's all. It got messy. I handled it. Like it was trash. A spill. Something to be wiped away before I saw the stain. Ooh, is Emily really? I asked. And don't say she's no one. You don't do all this for no one. Mark didn't answer. Instead, he set the beer down, turned his back, and walked into the hallway. The conversation was over. For him. But I followed. Because it wasn't over for me. I found your red folder, I said. He paused. Not visibly, just enough for his hand to twitch. I read your note. Don't trust anyone, even me. What did you mean by that? He didn't turn around. Didn't speak. Just stood there. Back to me. Breathing slow. Then. I meant what I wrote. A voice flat, quiet. But I didn't think you'd ever look. I let the silence sit. Let it stretch. Then whispered, I never stopped looking. I just finally started seeing. He walked into the bedroom. Closed the door behind him. But this time, I didn't feel shut out. I felt awakened. We stopped talking 3 days ago. Not officially. Not in anger. Just faded. Like ink washed out by too much water. Mark still came home. Still used the shower. Still drank from the same chipped coffee mug. But he didn't ask about my day. Didn't look me in the eye. Didn't ask why the ultrasound was no longer on the fridge. I moved it. Not out of rage. Out of clarity. We were no longer pretending. And I had no interest in maintaining the illusion. We shared a space, but not a life. Two ghosts passing in a hallway that once echoed with late-night jokes and burnt toast. I wrote more. Not poems, not grief, just facts. 6:12 a.m. door opened. Keys jangled. 6:15 a.m. didn't speak, poured black coffee. 6:42 a.m. changed shirt, same jeans from yesterday. 7:03 a.m. left without saying goodbye. Each line went into a leather-bound notebook I kept beneath my pillow. It wasn't paranoia. It was preservation. I didn't need closure. I needed proof. The kind no one could twist. I texted Tasha, "Do you still have that Jage friend you once mentioned?" 3 dots blinked, then disappeared, then reappeared. Yes. Why? I didn't answer right away. Because the why was everything. And nothing. Instead, I sent us woody talk, hypothetically as a few minutes passed. He owes me. He'll talk doc. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling, like the answer might be written in plaster cracks. Then I got dressed, slipped out before Mark returned. Didn't leave a note. The sky was dull gray. Desert wind, kicking dust up in little spirals across the parking lot. I walked to the tech store, 3 blocks from the clinic. Didn't say much. Didn't browse. Just picked up a small external drive. Black, unmarked, fits in the palm of my hand. Paid in cash. The cashier barely looked at me. Didn't ask questions. But I had answers forming already. Every file. Every message. Every scan. Every lie he tried to bury. I would back it up. Twice. Because trust wasn't currency anymore. Survival was. And I didn't know what he was preparing for. But I was preparing too. Quietly. Thoroughly. One copied file at a time. The clinic was nearly empty. Just me, the soft hum of old fluorescent lights, and the faint scent of antiseptic fading into evening. I closed the blinds in my office. Locked the door. Slid the external drive into the USB port and opened the first folder. Ultrasound scans. Time-stamped messages. Mark's rotation schedule. Camera footage. Voice memos to myself I hadn't dared listen to yet. I copied everything. Slowly. Deliberately. Like each file was a stitch in the armor I hadn't known I'd need. The loading bar crept forward. Steady. Unforgiving. My phone buzzed. "Ask Tasha, you free to meet?" I'd rather not say more over text. "Then, he'll come with." "Quiet. You can trust him." I stared at the screen. Something in my chest flickered. Not fear, not hope, something in between. "Ask Mia tomorrow. My break's at 4:15. Same place we used to get coffee," as she replied within seconds. "Is confirmed. He's discreet. Former Jage, now civil, still has access just for a moment." I just watched the screen glow in the darkened office. Proof that someone believed me. Proof that someone saw what I saw, and didn't call it crazy. I turned back to the files, created duplicates. One to the drive. One to my private cloud. Then I deleted the originals from the clinic desktop, not because I was hiding. Because I was shifting ground. From defense to preparation. The hallway outside my office creaked once. Cleaning staff, probably. I didn't flinch. Didn't pause. Just kept working until the final file dropped into place. I ejected the drive. Held it in my palm. It felt heavier than its size should allow. I remembered a day almost a decade ago. Back when Mark and I were just 2 interns, sharing coffee and combat rotations. He sat beside me on a bench outside the simulation lab. I was overwhelmed. Fumbling. "Ashamed," he said. "Everyone else will doubt you. I won't." I believed him. Built a world on that one sentence. Made excuses for every red flag after that. Because what's more dangerous than a betrayal wrapped in a memory of being chosen? I slipped the drive into my coat pocket. Stared at my reflection in the dark monitor. hair tied back, eyes sharper than they'd been in years. He thought I wouldn't fight, I whispered, then turned off the lights, let him find out. The cafe was nearly empty. Late afternoon sun poured through streaked glass, painting long shadows across cracked leather booths. The kind of place where no one asked questions. Perfect. Tasha sat near the back. No wave, no smile, just a nod as I slid into the seat across from her. Beside her was a man I didn't recognize. Trim beard, tired eyes, military posture. "This is Daniel," she said. "Former Jage. Trustworthy." He extended his hand. Firm shake, measured. Not a man who talked unless it mattered. "You brought the drive?" he asked. I slid it across the table. He plugged it into a tablet already waiting in his lap. I watched his eyes scan the folders. No reaction. No questions. Tasha sipped her coffee like she'd seen this before, like she knew how many women sat in this very booth handing over proof instead of pain. Daniel paused. Looked up. "Before we go further, do you want revenge, or do you want leverage?" I didn't blink. "Neither," I said. "I want my name back." He nodded once. Didn't write it down. Just understood. This name. C. Reyes. Used for the paternity order. It connects you legally if it isn't contested soon. He's building something that ties you to that child on paper. Which means if anything happens. Inheritance, benefits, claims. You're already inside it. My stomach tightened. Not from shock. From confirmation. He kept scrolling. His finger tapped lightly on a document. "This intake form. It lists you as emergency contact." "That's impossible," I said. He turned the screen toward me. "Camila Reyes, emergency contact. Relationship spouse of father." I stared at the form. I had never seen it. Never signed anything. Never gave permission. Tasha leaned in. "Did Mark ever have access to your signature? Old scans, prescriptions, anything?" I nodded slowly. "For years. I used to let him fax my forms. I trusted him." Daniel sat back. Didn't sigh. Didn't blink. He just muttered. "Of course you did." He tapped the edge of the tablet. "This gives us a place to start. If he forged anything using your name, we can trace it. And we can use it." I swallowed hard. "What do I do in the meantime?" "Keep living," he said. "Keep watching. But don't let him know you're preparing." I nodded. Reached for the drive. He stopped me. "Leave it with me. I'll mirror it. Securely." Tasha placed a gentle hand on my wrist. "You're not alone in this?" I didn't answer, but I believed her. Daniel tapped the screen again. Brows pinched. Voice lower. "Wait. Who signed this one?" He turned the tablet toward me. It wasn't my signature. But it was my name. I was back at the clinic by 6:40 a.m. Too early for patients. Too late for sleep. The lights buzzed overhead. Dust floated in the sunbeam slicing through the blinds. I sat at my desk with 2 copies of my own signature laid side by side. One from a medical license renewal, dated 3 years ago, clean, sharp. The other, from Emily's intake form, softer, tilted slightly right, as if someone had copied it with care but not confidence. I scanned both. Labeled them S original, and as Andrew S. forgery. Sent the file to Daniel with a single-lined R suver. "Here's the start. More to come." Then I opened a fresh document, titled it, "Oz Witness Timeline C. Reyes, Us," and I began to write. Not like a wife, not like a woman betrayed, like a doctor, a professional, a witness who had seen too much and stayed quiet too long. I included time stamps, video logs, discrepancies in Mark's stories, Emily's conflicting statements, P.O. box records, medical access abuse. I didn't include feelings. Not rage, not heartbreak, not fear, only facts. Because when the time comes, feelings don't win, proof does. The cursor blinked on the last line when my phone lit up. Unknown number. No message preview. I hesitated, then opened it. Emily, it's I need to talk to you. Alone. It's not what you think." I stared at the words for a long time. My chest tightened, not from surprise, but from recognition. She knew I'd seen the cracks doll and wasn't stepping back. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the voice recorder app, set it to auto, saved to cloud, checked the microphone, tested the backup. Then placed my phone flat on the desk. Screen down. Let it sit there like a third presence in the room. She wanted to talk. I'd let her. But this time, I wouldn't walk in blind. I wouldn't play fair. Because Emily might have thought she was the one being used, but she had no idea what it felt like to be rewritten into someone else's plan and called the villain. I leaned back in my chair, watched the screen go dark, and whispered to no one, "Let's talk." We met at Kennedy Park. Far from the clinic. Far from the house. Far from anything that still felt like mine. Mark used to run here. Every Sunday. Same bench. Same playlist. I arrived first. Chose the bench near the pond, quiet, shaded, facing the water where ducks floated like they knew something we didn't. Emily walked up 5 minutes later. Alone. No makeup, hair tied loosely at the nape of her neck. She looked younger than I remembered. Or maybe I just looked older. She sat, leaving a space between us. Didn't speak right away. I let the silence settle. Let it weigh. Then I asked, "Why my name?" Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. She blinked too much. Bit the inside of her cheek. I waited. "You weren't supposed to know," she said finally. Voice thin. Careful. "Did you think I wouldn't?" My tone was calm. Colder than I intended. She looked at her lap. "He said you wouldn't fight. That you were tired. Worn out. That you'd just disappear quietly." I stared at the pond. A ripple broke the surface. A duck dove under. Gone, then back again. "You believed him?" She didn't answer. So I turned toward her. Not with fury. Just clarity. "Did you know what you were signing? Or did he do all that himself?" Her eyes flicked to mine. "I didn't read everything. He told me you were fine with it. That it was already decided. Legal." My laugh wasn't sharp. It was hollow. "So you helped erase me without checking the ink." Emily swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "No. You're scared. There's a difference." She wiped the corner of her eye. "Why are you even here?" I stood up, looked down at her. Not cruel, not pitiful, just done. "Because he forgot who taught me how to survive." She didn't follow me. I didn't look back. The sun had shifted by the time I reached my car. Longer shadows. Sharper edges. I sat in the driver's seat and replayed her voice in my head. "He said you'd just disappear quietly." A quiet was never my weakness. It was my weapon. I got home before dark. Didn't turn on the lights. Didn't need to. I knew every corner of this house. The way floorboards creaked near the pantry, how the second drawer always stuck halfway. Mark never noticed those things. But I did. I pulled the external drive from my coat pocket and sat at the kitchen table. The same table where he once brought me roses, where I'd once circled baby names we never used. Now, it held only one thing: the truth. I plugged the drive into my laptop and began sorting. One folder for forged documents. One for Emily's false intake forms. One for audio, including our conversation in the park. She never asked if I was recording. She never thought I would. I labeled it as "he said you'd disappear." MP3 us. Then I opened my email. Composed a new message to Daniel. Subject: "Says time to move." Attached the folders. Encrypted password shared over Signal. Short message: us. Everything's in place. What's next? I hit send. No hesitation. Then opened a second email. To the administrative office at Fort Lowell Clinic. Subject: clarification of identity. C. Reyes's body as to whom it may concern. I am formally requesting the immediate removal of my name from all medical files related to patient Emily Hastings, including, but not limited to, intake forms and emergency contact information. I have never authorized the use of my name or signature in relation to her case. Please consider this a legal notification of identity misuse. Sincerely, Dr. Camila Reyes. Simple. Precise. No drama. Just accountability. I closed the laptop and slipped the drive into a padded envelope. Labeled it in red inky iris personnel legal. Then I drove to the print shop on Speedway. No one asked what I needed. No one looked twice as I slid in a USB and requested full-color prints. 2 sets. Single-sided. Stapled clean. Each image dropped into the tray like a slow countdown. Mark's forged signature. Emily's false file. The ultrasound he saved under. Receipt. The P.O. box slip. The deployment log that didn't match his lies. I placed them into a red file folder, the same shade he once used for his own warnings. Only this time the file wasn't for him, it was for me. I carried it home pressed flat against my chest. No fear, no rage, just readiness. I opened the drawer in our bedroom, pulled out my birth certificate, held it in one hand, the red folder in the other. Camila Reyes, daughter of no one's erasure. I smiled. You used the wrong woman. The email came at 7:42 a.m. Subject us, you're covered. Casa Daniel's message was short. Says Camila, we've reviewed everything. What you've collected is enough to initiate an internal investigation. If they dig deeper, and they will, they'll find more. You've done your part. Now let the system catch up. DRs. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then hit print. Added the email to the folder. One last piece of quiet justice folded into red. I changed into neutral colors. Gray blouse, dark jeans, flat shoes. Not flashy, not invisible. Just someone who knew where she was going. I drove to the administration building on base. Not the medical wing. Not the clinic. Straight to legal. I checked in under my full name. Didn't flinch when the woman at the front desk raised an eyebrow. Didn't smile. Didn't explain. I slid the red folder across the counter. I'd like this to be entered into record. It contains multiple forged signatures and misuse of military identification. The receptionist's posture changed instantly. She looked at the label XIC. Ray's misuse of identity is civil, military filing. She stood, left without a word. Less than 2 minutes later, a man in uniform came out. Not a receptionist, not a clerk. He took the folder in both hands. Nodded once. We'll take it from here, ma'am. That's all he said. That's all I needed. I walked out without looking back. The sun outside was sharp. Desert wind curling around the edges of my sleeves. I got into my car, pulled out slowly, turned onto Aviation Parkway, and that's when my phone buzzed. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. Camila. A male voice. Not Daniel. Not Mark. Flat. Precise. We need to talk, you're being watched. The click. No breathing. No time to respond. The call ended itself. I stared at the screen. Heartbeat steady. Too steady. I checked my mirrors. Nothing unusual. No cars tailing. No figures lurking. Just a traffic cam ahead blinking red like an eye that never sleeps. I didn't panic. Just gripped the wheel tighter. Shifted lanes. And kept driving. Mark was already home when I arrived. Leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He didn't say hello. Just asked, "What did you do?" I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door. Took off my shoes. Hung up my bag. Moved slowly. Deliberately. I stopped pretending, I said. That you were smarter than you are. His jaw twitched. I'm serious, Camila. So am I. He stepped forward. Just one step. Measured. Careful. I don't know what you think you found. He began. I cut him off. I didn't find it. You left it. Like breadcrumbs. For someone too tired to follow. He looked away, exhaled sharply. I made mistakes, he said. I panicked. I tried to fix it before it got worse. I raised an eyebrow. And forging my name was your version of fixing it. He didn't answer. Just stared at the floor. I didn't want it to end like this. That's the thing, Mark. You never cared how it ended, as long as I stayed quiet. He tried again. You remember that winter in Flagstaff? You got pneumonia. I stayed up 3 nights. Fed you soup with a spoon. I almost laughed. Almost. You think one kind act erases a campaign of erasure. His face hardened. I loved you. No, I said. You loved the version of me who didn't look too close. My phone buzzed. I turned from him, checked the screen. An email from the JAG office. Subject. Haas Sessions file received official action pending. I clicked it open. Haas Dr. Reyes, we have received the submitted documents and recordings. Based on the content, we are escalating this to internal military legal review, effective immediately. You will be notified as findings progress. Capt. D. Mercer, JH Corps. I looked up. Mark was watching me, trying to read my expression, trying to see if he still had time to twist the story. I set the phone down, met his gaze. "This isn't between you and me anymore," I said. "This is bigger. And you know it." He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there. A man watching the fire he thought he controlled finally spread beyond him. And for once, I didn't feel like the one burning. A week passed. No calls, no knocks on the door, no shouting matches or dramatic exits, just an email. Subject: Oz status update. M. Hastings from Military Personnel Affairs. A first effective immediately. Officer Mark Hastings has been placed on administrative leave pending formal investigation. This action is non-punitive but restricts access to base resources, classified systems, and official duty. Further updates to follow. I read it twice. Then once more. Not to celebrate, but to feel it. To mark the shift between silence and consequence, Tasha texted that evening. "It's done. Quiet, clean, but it's real." I didn't reply right away. Just stared at the red folder resting on my desk. Unopened. Still whole. I didn't need it anymore, but I didn't burn it. Instead, I filed it into a locked case. Labeled it TR, not revenge, not war. Just truth. That's all I ever wanted to be tied to my name. I packed slowly over the next few days. Not because I had to, but because it was time. Mark stayed in the guest room. Didn't speak much. Didn't ask where I was going. Maybe he already knew. Maybe he stopped assuming I'd tell him things without earning it. On the final morning, I placed a plain white envelope on the kitchen table. No drama. No signature. Just a copy of the investigation file and one line handwritten beneath the cover page. "Ah, Severus, in case you ever forget who you tried to erase." He didn't come out of the room as I left. Didn't follow me to the door. No footsteps. No farewell. That, somehow, was the loudest part of all. I closed the door behind me. Stepped into soft morning light. Car already packed. Folder locked. Keys light in my hand. I didn't look back. The drive took me past Fort Lowell. The Old South checkpoint. The same spot I used to sit in the car, waiting for Mark to finish late shifts. Sometimes I'd bring coffee. Sometimes I'd bring hope. Today, I brought neither. Just quiet. And peace. The checkpoint was still there. Still guarded. Still pretending everything inside it was protected. But I knew better now. Some things crumble from the inside first. I didn't slow down. Didn't wave. Just kept driving. Toward whatever came next. With my name intact. And no one left holding it but me. 3 months later, no one in Santa Fe called me Mrs. Hastings. No one asked what my husband did. No one asked what I'd lost. They only asked if I could stay late or cover the Tuesday morning shift, and that was enough. I worked part-time at a small women's clinic, tucked between a bakery and a bookstore that smelled like lavender and dust. The ceiling leaked in one exam room. The coffee machine only brewed half a cup. But the patients showed up early and so did I. My name was still Camila Reyes. But no one spoke it like a question anymore. I lived in a rented casita with creaky floors and windows that didn't quite close. Mornings were quiet. My hands made 1 cup of coffee. My mouth spoke to no one but the sky. And still, the peace felt earned. One Thursday, a girl came in, 14, pregnant, silent. She sat in the corner of the waiting room like someone expecting to be turned away. I called her name gently. She didn't look at me, just held her form creased and stained, as if shame could imprint through paper. Her aunt had dropped her off. No one planned to pick her up. I told her to come in anyway. Ran the tests. Explained everything with calm hands. Didn't ask how it happened. Didn't ask who left. She didn't say much. But before she left, she said, "Thanks for not making it worse." That stayed with me. Not because it was praise, but because it reminded me of the version of me I had nearly let them erase. At night, I sometimes sat with my old notebook. Not to reread. Just to remember. I'd written a letter to Tasha, another to Daniel, thank you notes, folded, sealed, unsent. Some things you hold on to quietly, as part of the legacy you build for yourself. I kept the red folder locked in a drawer. Didn't open it. But I did open the drive. Sat in my new kitchen, moonlight catching the edges of the screen as I deleted the files one by one. The fake signatures, the camera logs, the forged consent forms, the ultrasound labeled receipt, each one gone. Except one, the audio file. Emily's voice. He said you wouldn't fight. I played it once. Just once. Then whispered, he was wrong. And pressed save. Saturday mornings at the library were quiet. Just the sound of pages turning, kids whispering too loudly, and old fluorescent bulbs humming above rows of secondhand chairs. I'd signed up for the legal awareness session on a whim. Protecting Your Identity, a workshop for women. Hosted by a retired paralegal and funded by the local Coalition for Domestic Rights. They needed volunteers, someone to help women fill out forms, translate legalese into something less sharp. I raised my hand. We sat at folding tables with clipboards and printed packets. Nothing dramatic, no courtrooms, just soft pens and stronger intentions. Midway through the session, a woman slid into the seat across from me, late 50s. Eyes that had seen too much and said too little. I don't even know where to start, she murmured. I walked her through the basics: how to file a freeze on shared accounts, how to request access logs, how to recognize signatures that aren't really yours. She listened, nodded. After a while, she looked at me and said, "You look like someone who's been through it." I smiled. Not wide, not broken. Then I must have made it out. She chuckled, not because it was funny, but because she understood. I didn't tell her my story. Didn't need to. But before I left, I handed the session coordinator a thin manila envelope. Inside was a stripped-down, redacted version of everything I'd built. A step-by-step timeline. What to look for. Where to go. Who to call. I didn't sign it. Didn't want credit. Just left a note for the next woman who thinks she has no proof. She does. Start here. Then I walked home. The sky had darkened by the time I reached my street. Clouds rolling in over the hills. No thunder. Just the kind of rain that doesn't ask for permission. It just arrives. I didn't run. Didn't pull up my hood. Didn't hide under the porch. I let it soak into my sleeves. Down my neck. Into the seams of the day. Not punishment. Not cleansing. Just weather. I paused at the gate. Looked back once. Then stepped inside. My casita smelled like eucalyptus and old books. The window was cracked open just enough to let in the storm. I made tea. Lit a candle. Sat down at the table where I now wrote letters only to myself. Some people survive. Some rebuild. I chose both. Quietly. On my terms.